On the opposition side. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, we should do
Mr. Order. Speaker. I call the honourable member, Dr. David Clark.
Well, Mr. Speaker,
just before the member sits up, just to inform the House that this is a split call, and I'll give the member the bell with 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker. Well, that speech was certainly a triumph of style over content, and that is certainly saying something, Mr. Speaker. Look, Mr. Speaker, this government has the worst economic record in 50 years. That is something we need to put on record right from the start. We have this picture building of a government with awful record of achievement. We see the unemployment rate up to the highest levels it's been at since the 1990s. We have 30,000 jobs out of the economy last year, and we have 1,000 New Zealanders leaving for Australia a week. The statistics would be worse for that. And why is it not working, we ask? Well, it's because this government doesn't really seem to have an economic plan. And that was laid bare in the Select Committee. We saw a government whose only plan currently is to sell down our best revenue-generating assets. The Treasury says that'll take us backwards by 100 million a year. That is their plan. Their previous plan was to mine national parks. That's gone. They don't have any ideas, so they're selling off farms, they're selling our assets, they're trying to do crony deals for pokey machines, and it's cronyism that really sits at the heart of this government's economic policy, and it simply is not working. The facts show it is not working. The wage gap with Australia is growing. It's gone from $120 a week to $180 a week in the last 4 years. So this government is simply not meeting its promises. It's disappointing New Zealanders. But that cronyism, that is their economic policy, it seems, is something that is being laid bare. And we know that there's been a very cosy relationship and a costly relationship between this government and its state-owned asset in Solid Energy. And we know that the shareholding ministers had facts at their disposal and did not intervene. Either they trusted too much, or they didn't ask the hard questions, or they thought if they threw a bit more money at it, at the directors' fees, it would go away. But what we know is that they did have a very cosy relationship. They're not talking much about it now, but this picture tells us that they had a pretty cosy relationship. Here we see the Minister of Finance with the then Chief Executive of Solid Energy, Don Elder, developing one of the now mothballed projects. At the same time, they were borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars at the taxpayers' expense. And I'm picking that tomorrow, when the SOEs come in, when Don Elder comes in to talk to the Select Committee, we'll see New Zealanders asking then whether Bill English will be sitting with him and whether Bill English will have his hand on Don Elder's tool tomorrow. That's what New Zealanders will be asking. So we see this cosy, costly relationship with the state-owned assets. We see a government that is failing to deliver jobs, and there is no hope. We've got an economic development minister who's no better, a Ministry of Economic Development that doesn't even have a minister in charge of it. The closest thing we've got is Mr Joyce, who's called the government's Mr Fixit. Now, if you say that with a strong Kiwi accent, you get a lot closer to the truth, I reckon, because this is not delivering jobs. This government is not delivering jobs, and Kiwis are feeling it. Kiwis in the regions are really struggling right now, and they know that this government is not delivering. Despite promising to close the wage gap with Australia, it's grown. Despite saying your loved ones won't go offshore, the number leaving is 1,000 a week, record numbers to Australia. It's a short-sighted and petty budget that they've delivered, picking the pockets of paper boys and increasing class sizes, but they have no new ideas to grow the economy. That is why it's going wrong. That is why it's got the worst economic growth record of any government in the last 50 years.
I call the honourable member, Julianne Genter. Tēnā koe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koe.